Welcome to Auction version 4, the event management software tool from Auction Systems. In this video, in the Documents playlist, I will show you how to create mailing labels and similar identifying documents associated with your name's data. To get to the name documents, on the main home task ribbon, click Documents and then click Name Documents. The first 4 name document types are labels, which I will call identifying documents. Click on any one to get started. I clicked on mailing labels, but any of the label type documents would have sent you to a very similar screen. On the left side of the screen there is a select document panel that has 3 sections. The top section, when dealing with labels, relates to the bottom section. So let's look at the bottom of this panel first. If this project had any saved custom formats for this document type, you will see them listed in this Select Custom Document section. Also, if you've ever printed any documents of this type without saving the format as a custom format, you will see Last Printed down here. Click on the Custom Document or Last Printed to reload the format screen. Both custom formats and Last Printed also include some name selection criteria. So this brings us to the 2 buttons at the top. When you choose a custom format or Last Printed, the default choice is to load both the name selection criteria associated with the format and the format itself, which is the look of the document. But you do have a choice to only load the format, which is just the look of the document, and ignore the name selection criteria. You would make this second choice if you like the arrangement of the label and have already printed labels for, let's say, donors, but now wish to have the same label, but this time for invitees. If there is no saved custom document of this type or Last Printed, or if you need to create a new label, you must start by picking your label size in the center section here. These are all standard Avery label sizes. Most non-Avery brands and even other Avery brands that aren't these exact same Avery label numbers will say on the box or package to use one of these Avery numbers when formatting your labels. If you do not see any Avery number on your package of labels, pick one of these labels based on the number of columns and rows of labels. This will give you a good starting place, and if needed, you can adjust the margins. Choose the size you want by clicking on it, and you will see the next screen where you can design the look and pick the name selection criteria for your new label. This is the screen you see when you start a label from scratch by picking the Avery label type or when you open a saved custom label. The difference is with a new blank label there will be no name refinements, and the look of the label itself will have some default choices that you can edit for your specific needs. So let's look at what is available on this screen. There's a ribbon at the top, a name selection panel, and some formatting panels on the left. A grid of the names that currently are selected is in the center. Whatever order this grid is in will be the order the labels will appear when printed. The default order the names will appear is alphabetical by last name or company, depending on what type of label you're going to print. There will be other columns, and if you want to change the order of the list, click on one of the other column headers to sort by that header type. In this case, you could sort by bid number or by zip code. On the right is a preview of one name record, and it will be the record that is highlighted in this grid in the center. The preview will never be a preview of an entire sheet of labels. If I want to see an entire sheet, I must click Preview All at the ribbon on the top. This preview to the right is simply there for me to see what a single label might look like. If you would like the preview to show a different record, click on that record in the list in the center, and the preview screen will be updated for that name record. Speaking of the preview on the right, these buttons along the bottom control that preview. When you don't want to see this on-screen preview, click On Demand and the preview will go away. If you have the button After Idle For clicked, you can set the timing for how fast the preview on the screen will refresh. The default is every 2 seconds. I find this 2-second timing really annoying if I'm going to be making a lot of changes because the screen will constantly be blinking on and off as the preview refreshes every 2 seconds. So when making lots of changes, change this timing to at least 60 seconds. Then, if it does not refresh immediately after the last change, click the Update Preview button and force the refresh. This button will also turn the preview back on if you turned it off by clicking on Demand. And of course, the default timing button will pop up a screen where you can change the default update timing for whatever timing you want. But remember, if you change this default update timing, it will set the new timing for every preview on any document or report formatting screen. So be sure to set it for a reasonable number of seconds, or others who open your project may not ever see a refresh and might not know to click Update Now to force a refresh. They will think making changes doesn't do anything. Let's look at all these parts of the screen in detail, starting with the ribbon at the top. The first 4 buttons tell how we got to this screen. In Home, I click Documents, and then I click Name Documents, and finally I click Mailing Labels. The Select Format button is the same as this gray vertical button on the left. Clicking either one of these causes the previous panel to fly out from the left. This is the panel where you chose a saved custom format, the last printed format, or picked a new Avery label type. Click either of these buttons if you want to start over in the same type of label, or choose not to load any name selection criteria with the last printed or saved custom format. The Label Setup button on the ribbon or the Custom Page Setup vertical button on the left causes another menu to fly out on the left side of the screen. In this menu, you can customize the page size and the label size if the Avery style you picked is not exactly right. You can also choose to print in portrait or landscape. Landscape is really unusual for labels, but I guess it is possible. And if you're going to include images on your labels, you can choose the quality of the image. In general, good quality is sufficient on small labels and less likely to cause you to run out of memory in Windows when trying to print several labels at once. The next button, Font Size, is the same as the vertical fonts button on the left. Clicking it will cause a font panel to fly out where you can change the fonts for the different parts of the label from the default font to a font of your choosing. The next part of the ribbon allows you to control what cells on the label stock you wish to start the printing in. This does not pick which name to start, but simply what label cell the first name will be printed on. Why do you need this feature? Well, this feature helps you not waste label stock. Let's say you've already printed a bunch of labels, but the last page that came out of the printer did not use the entire page. Use that label page as the first page for the next batch of labels you want to print, and tell Auction to start printing on the first unused cell by indicating which column and which row that cell is located. The printing will start in that cell, and if the list of labels is longer than that first partial page, the next page of labels will print properly at the normal starting cell in the upper left of the page. If you need more than one copy of each label, you can select the number of copies here. It will not print 2 labels in a row for each name record, but rather print an identical sheet of labels. If you choose to not collate, each additional copy will print after the first sheet of those labels. Collate means that the first set of labels will print out all pages before the next set prints. Preview All allows you to see all the labels before printing. This preview will pop up in a new window that normally pops up in front of the current screen, but occasionally, on some people's monitors, it will pop up behind. If it does pop up behind, you may think that Auction has stopped working, but really it's only waiting for you to look at the preview and then close it, but you don't see it because it's behind. Look at the bottom of your monitor and you will see the icons of the applications that are running. Hover your mouse over the Auction gavel icon on the bottom of the screen, and if there is more than one screen, it will show a glimpse of both. Pick the one that looks like the preview by clicking on that little glimpse, and it should bring the preview to the front. Once you've seen the preview, you can print from there, or you can close the preview. Print allows you to print all labels at once, or if you choose, you can select a certain name record and only print that label. After you have the name criteria and the look of the label exactly how you want it, you can click the Save button to name and save the label as a custom label. If you cannot save a label, click the Hint button to find out why. And finally, when you're designing the look of the content of the label, you can open all the formatting panels on the left or close all the formatting panels using these 2 buttons. Now let's take a closer look at what's below the ribbon. This top panel on the left is for my name selection criteria. It controls what names I need labels for. Below the selection panel are the closed panels designing the look of the label. The only criteria for names currently is donors, so the list of names in the grid on the right is every name in my project that is marked as a donor. If I want to add invitees to the grid, I can click that button to make it dark too. Dark buttons are turned on and light buttons are turned off. Once you have the broad name type or types, you can further refine the list of names using the Refine menu in the center here. There are a lot of refinement choices in the pull-down. Maybe I have a lot of name records marked as donors in my project because they have donated in the past, but this year some of them did not donate. They are still marked as donors, but I only want to print labels for donors that donated an item in this project. That's easy. One of the choices in this refined pull-down is donations type. Pick that choice and then make sure only the item type button is dark. The list on the right will then be only donors that have made an item donation this year. You can add multiple refinements to drill down the list of names in the grid to exactly who you want a label for. The panel below the name selection criteria panel is for customizing the margin settings inside each label. The default margin inside the cell for each label is 0.1 inch in each direction. If this is not sufficient, or if the label stock is already printed with a logo to one side or the other, you can change the label margins so you will not print over the logo. Depending on the type of label you pick, there will be one or more panels below the Margins panel. These panels allow you to customize what is included on the label itself. Some labels have a header panel that you can use to put a header at the top of each label. The header can be words such as the name of the organization, and/or you can also include a project image on each label, such as your organization's logo. Mailing labels do not have a header panel because you normally don't want that on a mailing label. But name tags do, and you can add a header if you want to the name tag. There is a header panel. The next panel you will see is the Contents panel. This is the panel where you pick the information that will appear on the label. Different labels will have more or less choices inside this Contents panel depending on the type of document. For example, a mailing label has address information, but does not include bid number, table number, or entree choice. Check and packet labels may need address and all the other information, as well as phone numbers and emails. Whatever choices there are, when a button is dark, that information associated with that button will be included on the label, but only if that information has been entered in the name entry form for that name record. At the top of this panel, you can choose how you want the name to be listed on the label. If in the data entry form for any name, salutations such as Mr., Mrs., Ms., Doctor, etc. were entered for a name record, formal means that you want to have that information appear on the label. For example, if you have Mr. Thomas Smith as the primary name, and in the secondary name in the same name record you have Mrs. Carol Smith, choosing formal means the label will say Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Smith. Standard will ignore the salutation and the label will be Thomas and Carol Smith. If you've entered Tom in the nickname field for Thomas Smith, an informal label will be Tom and Carol Smith. When choosing informal, if the nickname field is blank for any name record, informal will choose the first name. Informal is often used for name tags. Case, if you want to print a name tag for Tom Smith and a separate one for Carol Smith, tell Auction to do so. The Follow Style button will follow the preference for name style picked in the Settings task area for the name settings. If formal is your preference, clicking this button will follow that preference. Some tags, but not mailing labels, will also have a choice between printing labels in document style or report style. Document style is the first name and then the last name, which is ideal for mailing labels and usually for name tags. Report style is last name, comma, first name, which is ideal for check-in packet labels so you can easily sort the packets in alpha order by last name. Some document types will also have a footer. For labels, the footer is similar to the header where you can add both a text and/or a project image to the bottom of the label. Thank you for joining us.